If you need to watch a movie review, who you gonna call? Movie Man. Anyways, I'm Movie Man, and I'm supposed to review movies, and as you can guess, today's review is going to be on. I was relatively looking forward to this film, because I have enjoyed some of the previous entries in the Ghostbusters series. The original one is the classic. The second one, not as good as the original, but I still think it is pretty enjoyable. Just even though if the story is not as strong. And of course, 2.5 years ago now, when I started this channel, Afterlife was one of the first movies that I reviewed. I watched Afterlife back when it released in 2021. I really enjoyed it. I really liked it. I rewatched it there in preparation for Frozen Empire, and I don't know if it's quite as good as I remember, because I know I felt like the first bit of the movie was kind of was slow enough, but I think once the second act comes around, it kind of really starts to get going. So yeah, I was looking forward to seeing this follow-up to Afterlife, Frozen Empire. The trailer for this one did look very interesting. It was cool to see them going back to New York City, where it all began, and them going back to the original firehouse. And of course, the main ghost which they're fighting in this one is it's going to freeze all of New York. So yeah, it did look like a generally new really interesting entry in the franchise. Now, prior to going to see the film, I had seen the reviews for it, and yeah, I saw what some people were saying, that it's not great. But I figured that I'd still see it for myself, to see what I think of it. In my opinion, this movie is fine, but yeah, I can see why people aren't really huge fans of it. I must say, this was quite disappointing. So to get further into my thoughts on the film, starting things off, I'll admit the cinematography is good. I do think it is honestly a very well shot movie. I think there are some genuinely very good shots in the film. Of course, this one being set in New York, I think it pretty much gets kind of the scope of New York pretty well. There's definitely some very nice overview shots. Really, a very nice film to look at, I will say. And I think during all these action sequences, they're fighting the ghosts, they're shot pretty well, in my opinion. So yeah, I think the cinematography is honestly quite good. The editing in the film, I don't really have a lot to say about, but I think the movie is honestly edited pretty well. There's not really that many issues I have with the editing. Like, it's a well edited movie. Yeah, so I think like the action sequences, whether I find it was they're edited well. Some of the chase sequences are edited pretty well. So yeah, I do think it is a well edited movie. Now, as for the pacing in this film, now really like a very long movie, but I do think it's probably like one of the longer entries in the Ghostbusters franchise. Not like by a whole amount, but like, I mean, the film is an hour and 55 minutes, so yeah, it's just 5 minutes short of being 2 hours. And well, I mean, I feel like it's an okay runtime for the film. I feel like some might not like the fact that, it has a longer runtime, but yeah, to be honest, I can kind of get behind it now. In terms of the pacing itself, I don't think it's particularly that great. I've seen some saying that like the movie kind of feels a bit too long, and yeah, I can kind of see where some are coming from with that. It can feel like a pretty long movie at times. I could kind of get behind it. But like, yeah, I know, I think the pacing wasn't horrible, but like, I don't know, I feel like maybe it could have been paced a bit better in parts. Well, I'll kind of get into things a bit more later, but like, yeah, I don't think the pacing is fine, but it's not great. Um, the sounds and music in the film, I'll admit, it is good. Like, I mean, I think it sounds pretty good. Like, I think like some like the sound effects of a lot of the ghosts are pretty solid. Nice to listen to, fit the movie pretty well. And the score itself, I think, is okay. Like, it's not a particularly great score or anything, but, I think it's fine. It is kind of the typical, like, blockbuster score, but, it's okay. Well, of course, we get to hear, the iconic Ghostbusters theme in the end credits, and well, yeah, it would not be a Ghostbusters movie without that song. Oh, yeah. But yeah, I think the sounds and music is generally decent. Um, the visual effects in the movie, I think, are pretty good actually. Like sure, at times you can kind of tell like some things aren't really there, but they do look quite good. They look generally really cool at times. Yeah, they're honestly just some very good visual effects. Like, I'm not gonna lie, the visual effects in the movie are honestly, in my opinion, better than like most modern MCU movies. Yeah, I think the visual effects in the film are pretty good. Now we get to the characters. So we have quite a few characters returning from the previous movie. We have the Spengler family back. We've got the mother, and we have the two Spengler kids, Phoebe and Trevor. We have Gary, who is Paul Rudd's character, back again. We also have one or two other returning characters, like we have Podcast and Lucky. They're both back in this film. We have some of the original Ghostbusters, Peter, Ray, Winston, and also Janine. And we have a few new characters in the movie, like we have kumail Nanjiani's character, we have Patton Oswalt's character, we have James Acaster's character, we have Alyn Lind's character. So there is quite a few characters in this movie, alright. Now, because there's so many characters, I am not gonna, heavily go into detail about a lot of them. I feel like a lot of the characters were in it more than others. Like, some characters only had, kind of very short appearances, or not much was required of them. And some characters are kind of given a bit to do in their own, subplots. The characters, they are okay, they're likable enough characters. Some of them can kind of have scenes where they're a bit unlikable, but they're still okay characters. And some of the characters I think can be a bit entertaining. But I will say some of these characters, most of them weren't really given that many interesting things to do in the film. The movie really could have, done some more interesting things with some of the characters. For me, I think the standout of the characters here was Phoebe. I'll admit, I think Phoebe has a solid arc in this movie. And she basically, in a good bit of this film, this whole subplot, she basically befriends Alyn Lind's character. Now, with Alyn Lind, she's not really showing any of the marketing for the film, but I kind of had a feeling that her character, wasn't really going to be a huge character. She's only going to kind of have a bit of a minor character, but no, she is actually in the film, quite a bit of it. Now, I won't get into her character, but basically, what I will say about her character, whose name is Melody, she becomes friends with Phoebe, and some interesting things happen, I'll just say that. I'll admit, I actually kind of liked that subplot. I found this generally pretty interesting, and I did like Phoebe and Melody both as characters. So I liked their whole subplot. Also the villain in this movie, Garaka, who is the evil horned ghost. I'll admit, Goraka was actually quite a cool villain, in my opinion. Like, he has a really cool design, and I thought he was a genuinely menacing threat. So yeah, I think Goraka was a pretty good villain. Uh, Now the acting in the movie, I'll admit, is good enough. Like, I think pretty much everybody does good enough for what they are given, but yeah, all I'll say is some characters kind of feel like they're not really put to much good use in the film. So, in total, the characters overall are okay, but we'll talk more about this in just a moment. So, in terms of the plot of the movie, now, as I said, the film has an intriguing concept, where they return to New York, the original firehouse, and they have to face off against a new ghost, whose evil plan is to freeze all over New York. Does sound like a genuinely interesting plot. You could it's interesting to see like where could this plot go? What could they do with it? So it is a good concept, but the execution is definitely not great. Why, you may ask? Well, it's because of the characters. So let's go over all the characters in the film again. Okay, so we have the Spengler family. We have the mom, who's Carrie Coon, and we have the kids, Phoebe and Trevor, from Afterlife. We have Gary, Paul Rudd's character, back from Afterlife. And also returning from Afterlife are the characters Lucky and Podcast. We have some of the original Ghostbusters back: Ray, Peter, Winston, and Janine. And we also have a few new characters like kumail Nanjiani, Patton Oswalt, James Acaster, and Alyn Lind's character Melody. Now, do you notice something? Way too many characters. Way too many. I know pretty much a lot of other people have said it, but I need to say it as well. There were just way too many characters in this film. And because of that, the movie doesn't really know what to do with certain characters. Like, I mean, it kind of seems to just put them all into kind of their own kind of subplots, but the film really does not do anything interesting with some of these subplots, and I'll talk more about it in a bit. Well, that was kind of my main issue with this movie, but also as well, like, again, as I said, it's not like a great execution of the concept, because, the movie kind of doesn't really know what to properly do with it. It splits all the characters up, everyone kind of doing their own thing. But also another thing as well, the movie kind of seems to rely a bit too much on the nostalgia. Like, I mean, throughout this film, there is a whole bunch of references to some of the previous films and, like, the Ghostbusters. Like, they reference the original movie a lot. Like, like they have Slimer make an appearance. They bring back those tiny little marshmallow men from Afterlife. Like, there's just a whole bunch of, like, references to the original film here. It's like, and sometimes it's like, oh, remember that thing? Oh, remember this thing? And yeah, the film kind of does start to get a bit annoying with it. It's like, the movie kind of really focuses on it a bit too much. It's like, okay, I'll find all the neat references, but maybe it should kind of try to be its own thing, Yeah, I think the film did rely a bit too much on that whole nostalgia factor. And yeah, it especially really did not make the plot that great. That's not to say it's the film's not really like a pain to watch. Like, there are some generally pretty fun sequences here when they're kind of chasing after some of the ghosts. The movie can be genuinely pretty fun at times, but those flaws do kind of bring the plot down, I feel. So, yeah, the plot was not the best. It had a decent concept, but they should have executed it way better. Um, then we get to the narrative structure, and this is easily the biggest problem with the film. So, as I said already, there's way too many characters in this film. Way too many. And as I said, because of that, they kind of try to split all the characters up, like kind of give them their own like subplots. I can't even really like notch down all the different subplots off my head, but there is just way too much stuff going on in this film with all these different characters, and because of that, it just feels like a really uneven narrative. Yeah, as I've said, I like the whole subplot with Phoebe and Melody, and I'll admit when the film does start to kind of getting into Goraka, the ghost, the main villain of the movie, that part is pretty interesting, but the film kind of really dedicates its runtime to like a whole bunch of these other subplots. It just really does not feel very even. Like there was kind of just way too many characters in the movie. Like, I feel like they could have cut a few characters, like maybe cut the original Ghostbusters, because like maybe Afterlife just could have been like a nice send off to the original Ghostbusters. Like, don't have them back, just really focus on the new characters, the new generation of Ghostbusters. Maybe cut out one or two other characters as well. Again, as I said, it's a neat concept, but what ultimately brought it down was just the fact that there was way too many characters. If there was just less characters and, they just did a better job with this concept, this narrative would have been way more even, but yeah, what we ultimately get is a very uneven narrative. All because they just decided to put way too many characters into the film. So yeah, narrative structure was definitely not great. So overall, Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, not a bad movie in my opinion. There's a bit too much in this film for me to call it straight up bad. It is shot well. The visual effects are very good. The acting is good enough. I said the villain is quite cool, and I do like Phoebe and Melody as characters. Their whole subplot, but what brings this movie down is the fact that there's just way too many characters, way too much stuff going on, and it just made the narrative feel very uneven, and I feel like they just kind of leaned into the nostalgia factor a bit too much. So I mean, they should have just like had less characters and maybe tone down the nostalgia factor a bit, and if they just told this concept, because it is a decent concept, but if they, had less characters and just kind of made it, a better narrative with the concept, and had things fit in a lot better, then I feel like this movie would have been way better than what it was. But what we got was not a bad movie, but not a good film either, and definitely one of the most disappointing films of the year so far. So with that, I am going to give Ghostbusters Frozen Empire a 5 out of 10. So with that, I'll see you guys next time, and bye.